Happy MLK Day. How's everybody doing? Man, I've been asleep all day. I don't know what's going on. Glad y'all can join me. The Esquire Suture Counselor should be joining us shortly. Well, I can hear it on my phone, so I know my sound is good. What is up, Adrian? We appreciate your support. What's up, Helmet? I hope it's gonna be good. It's a little different. So, like I said, we're gonna learn and pivot and make it work. I appreciate that, Helmet. What's up, Casual Economist? Salute, Wally. It's cold out here. Snuggling will be nice. Shout out to the snuggling. The future judge has arrived.
What's y'all going on? I may need to log back off and give y'all some privacy.
Nah, we good. We good.
It's cold out here. Snuggling would be nice.
Shout out to me. Shout out to PBO. You doing all right?
How y'all doing?
Let's see. So yeah, they give time for a couple people following. What's up, JM? Happy milk. Oh, happy MLK Day. I need glasses, JM.
I thought the same thing.
I don't know why I don't get I don't know why I get glasses. I got good insurance and everything, man. I need to get there. Wally, don't make her get a coat. I'm trying to snuggle, Wally. Don't be hating, Wally. No, I'm just playing.
I ain't got time for all that. Whatever y'all want to
do. Look in the middle. You should be able to. You should be able to share your screen. See that screen in the middle?
Yes.
Because I think you want to share your screen, right, for your slide.
It's got a red X through it.
Oh. No, just click on it. Is it an X or just one bar?
One bar, one line.
Yeah, just click on it. It should come up. As soon as you click on it, it should let you pick what screen you want to use.
Entire screen?
Usually I do a window.
A window?
The tab next to it.
There's no windows open.
Just click the entire window then. Let's make it work.
I can do Chrome tab. It's got Facebook. But how do I'm doing a PowerPoint.
It should, when you bring it up, it should show up. Just do your entire screen. It should show up. Then it should let you pick it.
Actually, when I did window, I can click on the
what?
So I had to click on it.
Well, I think it's showing up, but it's got my face showing in it. So I'm looking. Oh, you're probably looking at me. So you got to probably pick a different window.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so you get. Let me see. Peace to the InfoSec developers, gods and goddesses. Shout out to that. But we talking about wills and trusts because all that money we making, we need to figure out how to save it. Geek surgeon. So that's what we doing today. Sheed in the house. Always support me. I appreciate you, Sheed. He'd be everywhere in the YouTube streets. Go ahead.
I see now why you do the two screens.
Oh yeah, you almost need two screens.
Oh yeah, you need two computer screens because the window is over the we're streaming and I can't see no comments. So
I got you. I'll handle that. I'll be the
But I could do it on my phone though too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's another screen.
Yeah, you can look at the comments on the phone, but I'll be highlighting them and talking to them. But you can see on the phone. That'll be kind of your second screen to help you navigate. I didn't even think about that, to be honest.
I'll be highlighting them.
Okay, yeah, I can see the comments. Now I like to see them because sometimes, depending on what I'm gonna talk about, I'm gonna go to it may prompt another path of thinking.
No, facts. Gotta get you another screen. You right, we need them two screens, two streams, so you can. That's why I got them. I'm thinking about getting a third one, like I'm Star Trek up in here or something. Let me see. I think I need to just share. Yeah, I shared it. So now you see it. I had to.
Yeah, you shared it or am I sharing it?
You sharing it. I just had to okay it on my screen because I'm.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. There we go.
So you see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm learning too. I ain't never gave anybody the power on my YouTube. So you the first one. Let's take over the screen.
So I just did a slideshow presentation. There we go. It just flipped. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. So we talking about, well, let me introduce. We're gonna do wills and trusts. We call it the class. What do we call it, Hammer? Lecture? What do we call
Seminar.
Seminar. We're doing a wills and trust estate seminar. We've been talking about this, especially on a manosphere and on YouTube, right? How do you pass down legacy wealth? How do you not lose your family home? So this is starting to get you there. This is not legal advice, financial advice, psychological advice. This is for educational purposes only. So she will be available. You know, if you're in the location she's practicing, then she can give you some legal advice. But this right here is educational purposes only. So
yeah, this is really just to start the discussion. Everyone's situation is different. Everyone's circumstances is different. So I as an attorney who practices in these areas would really, and any attorney would really have to, have a one-on-one conversation with you to understand your specific situation and the facts around it, so we can, get the appropriate documentation and planning in place and keep it going, a strategy. And because you may have and want to keep this, monitoring it and assessing your situation, depending on the circumstances. And we'll talk more about that. John, I have a tendency to take over, so.
No, this is your show. I'm sitting back.
It's interactive, so again, as Professor Black Ops, I'm really work on that. Mentioned, this is my disclaimer. I'm licensed. Of course, I'm married as Hammer. I'm an attorney, and I'm licensed to practice law in Illinois, Indiana, the District of Columbia. So this presentation is not intended to provide legal advice to any individual or individuals, but is intended to be used for educational purposes. So we're going to be talking today about wills, trust, and estate planning. Professor Black Ops, my friend John, asked me to, come on and talk about this topic. I think it's a very important topic to discuss and definitely, to prompt the conversation, especially during the times that we're in. We're in the age of a pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic, as everyone knows and is aware, many of you may have experienced, yourself or loved ones, may have caught COVID and become ill. I don't personally know people who have passed away from COVID, but I do know many people who have passed away, who are my age, that I went to law school, particularly Black men. For some reason, I'm seeing on my timeline, and it could have been related to COVID. I just don't know. A lot of people are, aren't sharing necessarily the reasons why, their loved ones are dying. Maybe there's a stigma around it. I'm not sure, but we are in the age of a pandemic, and we are also in a new year, right? So one of the things that I like to do in the new year is reflect, try to figure out, some of the what do people do? They come with New Year's resolutions, right? And start planning. I put this phrase here. I had something different here earlier, this phrase here, but I like to kind of have these sort of inspirational phrases or, motivational pieces. And this isn't mine. I stole this from someone else here in Chicago. I live in Chicago, on the south side of Chicago, but one of the brothers here who has this organization called Ex-Cons for Community and Social Change. His name is Tyrone Muhammad. And so his thing is, it's going to take us to save us, right? So, and then we have to, my other thought was, we have to be intentional, especially in the new year. So, I know we're talking about wills, trust, and estate planning. I know we're talking about advanced care planning, but the idea is that we are, especially in the conversations you guys have been having with Professor Black Ops and building wealth and generational wealth, you have to have a strategy around protecting that wealth and being able to pass it down to future generations, right? So that's what we're really talking about here in the context of developing a will or a trust or an estate plan. And so one of the pieces to this conversation is or another part of it is advanced care planning, and all that really means. So the language, so, when you're getting into this area of discussion, the language is, this is the language. You may or may not be familiar with some of the terms, but advanced care planning is basically learning about the types of decisions that need to be made regarding healthcare preferences and making those decisions ahead of time. Again, we're talking about estate planning and a strategy around planning for the afterlife, but also in the case where one may become incapacitated. So what you want to do is notify those family members and healthcare providers who would be called upon to make decisions on your behalf, and hiring an attorney, which would give you peace of mind because, of course, we're going to ensure wishes are carried out and all legal documents are in place. So, developing that relationship. John and I have talked about this before, just about particularly in the Black community, where people don't really develop relationships with attorneys or legal providers. And so again, that's this is an opportunity to start having that conversation and having conversations with not just me, but attorneys, and seeking out advice from trusted advisors, particularly legal advisors. So one of the documents or pieces to an estate plan or an advanced care planning tool is called an Advanced Directive. You guys may have heard of this before. An Advanced Directive, also known as a living will or a healthcare power of attorney. So I'm just going to briefly discuss what that is. A living will, a healthcare power of attorney, gives you the power to choose the medical treatment you do or don't want if you become unconscious or incapacitated. It's a legal document that outlines your wishes regarding healthcare, such as your request for or refusal of certain medical treatment. And so what you do within this document, when you have the capacity, when you have or in a sound mind, right? When you're healthy, what you do is you get with an attorney and you talk about your healthcare power of attorney. And so you want to discuss with the attorney who is going to be able to make decisions, at least in this case, with regard to healthcare for you or on your behalf in the case where you may become incapacitated. That person, that individual, is called your agent or attorney in fact. That's the term for it. So it's someone who you're going to identify in the document who will be able to he or she is going to serve as your surrogate. And it becomes effective, right? The document, the healthcare power of attorney becomes effective when your disability team determines you are incapacitated. So also within that document, you're going to identify what's called your disability team. It could be just your doctor, right? It could be your doctor, your primary healthcare physician, or it could be some other, specific physicians. It could be one or two or three, and your healthcare power, your agent or attorney in fact. So when that team of individuals come together and basically determine that you're incapacitated, then that's when the healthcare POA kicks in, and then your agent or attorney in fact will be able to make those decisions on your behalf, right? So, and you have to keep it up to date. And I put that there just because depending on your needs, like you may be incapacitated, you may become incapacitated or lose consciousness, for example, and you may regain consciousness, right? So you may lose consciousness, and then the healthcare POA, your disability team determines that you're incapacitated, and your healthcare POA will be able to make decisions for you. But then what happens when you regain consciousness? Then you need to you're able to make those decisions for yourself. So you want to constantly be keeping up to date You may draft a healthcare POA today, and and identify an agent in fact, power of attorney for your healthcare decisions today. Next year, 2 years from now, they may get sick and pass away and no longer, be alive to be able to serve as your attorney in fact. So you want to keep it up to date.
Hammer, let me jump in real quick.
Yes.
She drew these documents up for me when my mom passed away 2 years ago, and I promise you, these documents made it a ton easier for me to move. Right, my mom told me what she wanted to happen, so I gave this over to the healthcare facility. Then I can make all the decisions for my mom. I don't want to jump ahead. I got the financial one. I gave it to the bank. So once you get all those documents, then you can move. If you don't have those documents, your loved one might have gave you a decision, but the hospital want to do something different because you don't got your paperwork in line and filed and how to move it. So I promise you, this was a lifesaver for me because then I could do anything I want, because my mom gave me the directives. But if you don't have those directives, the hospital gonna do what they want. Go ahead, Ann.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that, like I said, we're taking an opportunity here to start the discussion, because most people don't think about this until something tragic happens. Like, your mom gets sick and is in the hospital and may even be unconscious. And you've never even had the conversation, right, as to what she really wants. She may not, like my mom, for example, when she got sick, she was like, I want to live, fight to the last minute, to make sure, take every measure. Some people don't want that. Like, I don't necessarily want that. It depends on, my state of my quality of life. My mom she was like, everything. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
Real quick, my mom was 92. She was like, don't be trying to resuscitate me. I done lived my life. Don't be trying to put me on no damn machines. I done made 90. I lived out my friends. You know what you need to do. She said, don't be having them in there shocking me and trying to keep me alive when I'm withering away. She said, give me a machine. I want to be on a machine for 24 hours, but I'll come back. God calling me home. Don't be prolonging me. So she gave me the directive.
So everyone's situation is different, like I said in the beginning. So again, just let me talk a little bit about, like I said, we're supposed to identify, at least in your healthcare power of attorney, your agent or attorney in fact. And that individual needs to be someone who's at least 18 years or older, right? You can't have, the 13-year-old teenager trying to serve as your attorney in fact. Someone who knows you well, like in the case of your mom, John, it was your mother, who was identifying you as her son. Sometimes though, even the adult children may not be the best people to serve in this role. But it's because it needs to be somebody who knows you well and somebody you've communicated your wishes, your health with regard to healthcare. Someone you trust to do what is best for you and is willing to carry out your wishes, even if he or she may not agree with your wishes. So like for me, I may want to have something done, and certainly I don't have any children, but I couldn't have my sister do it because she gets too daggone emotional, right? And in fact, she was serving as my mom's attorney, in fact, when my mom had a heart attack. And really the doctors tried to resuscitate her. My mom couldn't do it. But my sister couldn't make the decision. She was calling me because she just got too emotional. And I was like, nope, we're not having mom go through all that. I had no doubt in my mind we weren't putting my mom through all of that. And I had not made it to the hospital yet. I was in Chicago. My mom was in Indianapolis, but there was no doubt in my mind. My sister just couldn't make the decision. It was so emotional, right? So it needs to be someone who was willing to carry out your wishes. It needs to be someone who would not be too upset or too emotional someone who would not be too upset or too I need to add emotional, to carry out your wishes if you become very sick, and someone who will be there for you when you need them and is willing to carry out this very important role. So, it needs to be somebody you trust, somebody who can do it. And, like I said, if you want to be resuscitated and you don't want to be in a machine, it certainly doesn't need to be someone who isn't going to be able to do that for you. So what kind of decisions can my agent make? You know, John had mentioned, Professor Blackhawks had mentioned that he could do, he could do whatever he wanted. He knew what his mom wanted. But the kinds of decisions are going to be just that. You really have to spell out the kinds of decisions your attorney, in fact, can make. But it's going to be, pretty much any healthcare decision that needs to be made, because you're going to be incapacitated. You won't probably be unconscious. You may not be able to speak or even understand, what is going on around you. But they're going to be able to talk with physicians and other healthcare providers and communicate with them. Without the healthcare power of attorney, the legal document, they won't be able to do that. See medical records and approve who else can see them, give permission for medical tests, medicine, surgery, or other treatments, to choose where you receive care and which physicians and others provide it. They're going to have the power to decide to accept, withdraw, or decline treatments designed to keep you alive if you are near death or unlikely to recover. They're going to have the power to decide what to do with your remains after you die. So you may want to be cremated, you may not. I want to be cremated, right? So my mom didn't. She would never have agreed to that, so we didn't do it. Talk with your, they're going to have the power to talk with other loved ones to help come to a decision, but your agent will have the final say. See, that's what I mentioned in the case of my sister. She talked with us, me and my siblings, but she had the final say. And that was fine with me. She was the healthcare power of attorney and I was the financial power of attorney. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. What are the things that I want my agent to know? So like Professor Blackops was saying, he and his mom had a discussion about how she wanted what kind of health, what kind of health decisions she wanted to be made on behalf, what she wanted to happen. So one of the things you want to consider is what is most important to you in your life, right? How important it is to you to avoid pain and suffering. Would you choose to live as long as possible or to avoid prolonged suffering or disability? And again, these are things that are important to have a conversation about nowadays, because we're in an age of COVID and a pandemic. We're still in it. Would you rather be at home or in a hospital for the last days or weeks of your life? My mom wanted to be at home. Bring me home, she said. And I was trying to keep her in the hospital because I thought they would help take care of her. And she was like, I want to go home. And that settled it. Do you have religious, spiritual, or cultural beliefs that you want your agent or others to consider?
Herman, let me chime in on that. I hate to interrupt you. My mom wanted to stay at the nursing home. I was like, Mom, I'm going to bring you home with me. She goes, I'm not coming home with your ass. You a grown man. I need you to live your life. I just need you to come see me. I said, well, I'm going to get you. I want to bring you. She said, nope. She said, I'm good. I got my 3 friends. I don't want you struggling to figure out what you want to do to me. I just need you to come up to the nursing home to see me, right? So that was her decision.
It's an important conversation to have because, like I said, I was fighting tooth and nail to get from Chicago, right? I remember standing down at the Daily Center, just almost just hysterical because the hospital wanted to release. Well, it was like an assisted living facility. They wanted to release my mom. She wasn't getting any better in her physical therapy, and they wanted to release her to bring home. And I was just distraught until I talked to my mom, and she says, I want to go home. And that made all the difference in the world for me. It just made me, I came to peace with it. One of the things that you're going to consider and have a discussion with, your agent about is about something called a DNR, or a Do Not Resuscitate Order. So like Professor Blackops had mentioned earlier, his mom didn't want any extraordinary measures, right, John? If I'm that correct? She didn't want any extraordinary life-saving measures. Like so what happens is, if you become unconscious and you can't breathe, or maybe you have a heart attack, in this case, it's a heart attack, and you need to be resuscitated, you want to identify in your healthcare power of attorney and discuss with your agent or attorney of fact whether or not you want to be resuscitated or not. It's called a DNR. It's an order, and that it will be documented in that order. So if and when that time comes, then your agent or attorney in fact will be able to communicate what you want with your doctors. You're going to also want to discuss if you want artificial nutrition or hydration, right? So if you can't eat, let's say you may be conscious you can't eat, are you going to have a feeding tube, placed there to feed you and to give you, water and fluids? And, again, we're here in the age of COVID, ventilation support. Do you want that? That's a really important conversation right now. I don't even know what I would do, to be honest with you. So I need to be having that discussion, right, with my agent or my attorney in fact, right? So that was all about healthcare power of attorney, all information and conversations you want to be having related to healthcare and with someone you trust, someone who's over 18 years of age or older, who can make those decisions, healthcare decisions on your behalf in the case where you may become incapacitated. So that's separate, right? The healthcare power of attorney is not the same as a power of attorney, what we generally call the POA, the power of attorney, which is the financial power of attorney. You guys see, I put this big money roll up here, which I know you guys are all carrying around. You have this. I know John, he's an OG, so he always has money in his pocket, and so is my dad. I don't know any other. Most Black men who from a certain era they carry money around. I never carry money around.
Facts.
The power of attorney, which most people have heard, the POA, or I call it a durable power of attorney. It deals with finances. It's the power of attorney that deals with the money. So if you become incapacitated and you cannot manage your affairs, you can't, you're incapacitated. You can't make decisions with regard to your health care, and certainly with regard to your money. So you're going to need a financial power of attorney, someone who can manage your affairs, your finances, in the case where you become incapacitated. It can be a different person than the healthcare power of attorney, and in some cases may need to be, right? The power of attorney, the durable power of attorney, a POA, the financial power of attorney gives you the power to choose the person who will manage your financial affairs in case you become incapacitated. Here again, you identify an agent or an attorney in fact to act on your behalf when you are no longer able to do so for yourself. It's not the same as a healthcare power of attorney. It's not the same as a healthcare power of attorney. People think it's the same, it's not. You'll be really messed up if you only get the healthcare power of attorney completed and not the financial power of attorney. I had a call last week about that. Somebody called me. His brother has dementia and had been unconscious. I think he was struggling with dementia and became incapacitated. I say that became incapacitated back in June of 2021. Doesn't have a financial power of attorney. His brother is the POA. His brother called me and says, well, I have this POA. Can I go to the bank? I went to the bank to get the money out the account because they're trying to make arrangements for him to get buried. Because now they put 6 months later, they didn't put him on hospice. So he's ready to transition. Well, they're trying to make the arrangements to bury him. They don't have no money. Man got all kind of money in the bank account. Can't get access to it. Can I get access to it? So the bank is telling him that you need a financial power of attorney. And he called me and says, what do I do? He really couldn't do anything because his brother is now incapacitated and I can't give him any more power than he already has given him. So the financial power of attorney is extremely important in this situation. Had he done the financial power of attorney, had his brother done that and made him the attorney in fact, he would have taken that document to the bank, like Professor Blackops said earlier, taken it to the bank and said, here, I've got this. And he would have had complete control over his brother's financial affairs. Right?
Let me chime in real quick.
Yeah.
She gave those to me. I took those to the bank. The bank put them on file. My dad was in the Army for 17 years. My mom was getting part of his pension. I could go in there, take money out, pay the taxes, pay whatever bills she needed. And so, without that, you would be stuck. And there was people behind me that was stuck. So like she said, if they're to a certain state, you can't get it. But like I said, I took that document to the bank, and like I said, I could withdraw, I could put money in, I had access to all our accounts. So I could promise you that that document is super
Because
important.
bills still need to get paid, right? Even though you may be unconscious, bills still need to get paid. You're still living, right? So bills still need to get paid. Things need to be done. Your financial affairs need to still be handled. You said that there were people behind you who didn't have one. What do you mean by that? Okay.
I was just happened to be by the lady, and she was trying to figure out how can she get access to her parents' account that was incapacitated. It was weird. My mom was in grade going to hospice, and I think her mom was in hospice, and they were arguing with the bank. I'm her child. They were trying to show documents of lineage, the shows they tell. The bank was like, we need the documents. So they couldn't get them.
Yeah, the same thing happened in the case of the gentleman who called me last week. He says, well, can my brother's daughter go to the bank and be his POA? I said, no. Well, that's his daughter. I said, but the person, your brother, would have to give her the power to do that when he's of sound mind, right? This has to be taken care of when you're healthy, not when you're incapacitated. It doesn't automatically, the power doesn't automatically transfer to your children. That's not how it works. That's why this is so important to talk about and to get your affairs in order. That's what that means, to get your affairs in order. It means to get a financial power of attorney, to get a healthcare power of attorney. It's really, really important to note too, that once you have a power of attorney in place and you die, I just want to be real clear and straightforward here. Once you pass away, the power of attorney ceases to be, it expires. So let's say in the case of this gentleman I was talking about last week, let's say he had a power of attorney for his brother, and his brother died, and he hadn't gotten the money out the bank before his brother died. Once his brother died, the power of attorney was no longer effective, right? So once the person dies, the power of attorney expires. So again, it's about proper planning, depends on where you are, what the facts of your situation are. So again, this is another document you got to keep up to date, because your health changes, your financial state changes, your agent could, the circumstances around your agent could change. So it's again something you have to keep up to date. And I say that I recommend, definitely getting your estate planning documents in place. And then like every year, at the beginning of the year, we take reflection. We go, okay, where are we in our lives? Do we need to change any of this? Do we need to, like we change our batteries, every year, right? We do more with our batteries and planning vacations than we do with planning for our future posterity and for the afterlife and how our affairs are going to be handled. So we talked about healthcare power of attorney. We talked about financial power of attorney. Those are two significant estate planning documents. And we could just end it here. And that if you didn't have those and you got those done after you got on this call, I would be great and think that you had done a lot. I will go a step further because it really depends on your situation. As I keep saying, and the circumstances around, your situation, as to what other documents you need in your estate plan. I know everyone has heard about a last will and a testament, right? People call it a will. People say, oh, let's drop a quick will. So I wanted to talk about that because a last will and testament is better than nothing, right? It's better than nothing, but it certainly isn't. You can't just get this simple will and think that everything is in place and you're good to go. But I did want to briefly discuss it so that we all knew what it was and why it wouldn't be just like the only thing you needed, right? A will, a last will, a will is, it outlines what we call the testator, the deceased, right? The person who becomes deceased, but while they're living, it's the person who is making out the will, right? It outlines the testator's intentions after death. Like, this is what's going to happen with my stuff, right? And who it needs to be distributed to after I pass away. The testator, as we all know, must be of sound mind, must have the capacity to actually make the will. The testator will identify what's called a personal representative or an executor of the estate. Those terms are interchangeable. It identifies the estate assets. You have to have witnesses to the will, right? The thing about having just the will, first of all, it doesn't include the healthcare power of attorney, and it doesn't include the financial power of attorney. So, hey, John, I have to take a break. Can I take the break here? Hello?
I'll take it over. I'll tell some stories about my mom till you get back and
Okay.
how the documents help me. Put your mic
Great.
on mute. So,
Oh, how do I do that?
it should be in the middle. It should right to the left. It should be a little mic. All right, cool. So, like I said, she did these documents for me. Like I said, I wasn't aware of a lot of those documents, right? So, they were a godsend. Like I said, my mom was in a nursing home. She didn't want to come live with me, so she had like 4 or 5 of her people at this nursing home. And actually, I think it was better than her. She been going to church for, oh my God, 60, 70 years. So they would actually have a service after service at the nursing home for my mom. So those documents, like I said, when I went to the bank with that power of attorney, gave me access to the bank account, the savings account. I needed to get some tax information from the assessor here so I could just fax them out. So anything you need to do financially, if you got the document, you can get that information. If you don't have that document, like I said, I know a few people that didn't have that document. They were struggling. And she did that those documents for some other friends of mine. Like I said, and like my mom had the DNR, Do Not Resuscitate. So, I gave that to the facility. So all of that together, lets you do what you need to do to handle your loved one. Like you said, you don't want to be caught off guard. Your Honor, I like to discuss the will, contest, and trust contest. Okay, I'll let her know when she comes back. Miss Nash, she got to take a little break to handle some judge type stuff. So I'm gonna put that out. So she's making a move there. So once again, she done these documents for me. My mom passed, say about 2.5 years ago. Like I said, I gave that to the hospital. The financial stuff, like I said, I had to get some other financial stuff. I just got it notarized, faxed it to, or emailed it with a notary, whatever I needed to get, and whatever that institution was. Once they had that document, then I could get that information, right? And some of my other friends didn't have it, and it becomes a nightmare, right? Because you think you could get access. Now, if your parents or whoever it was put you on the bank account, but a lot of times it's other stuff that you wouldn't think. Like I said, my mom had some tax issues, so I just faxed that up. I'll call it a financial POA to get that information. Like I said, you need that, and two is when my mom was, especially when she got in a hospice, you worried about so much other stuff and trying to make arrangements. You don't want to be fighting with the hospital and the bank, right? Because if you don't have that power, the hospital going to do what they think is best, right? They're going to look at you. Oh, we think if we put her on the machine, she might come back, right? So once again, that paperwork is paramount, and she's going to break down what's the difference. And she's much better. I always thought the will was it, and when I start talking to her, I'm like, oh, I need more. I need something more than a will, right? She's going to get into that, right? We think the will is it, and the other thing too is it's a hard thing to do. I'm an only child, so that makes it a lot easier for me, right? My mom trusts me, but when you got siblings, I see a lot of siblings argue. Sometimes I don't want to put out that they argue over the money, right? So you got to have all this stuff documented, who's going to control what, and who's the secondary, right? So you want all that stuff because you don't want to worry about it, right? When you in this time of, I guess, need and you scrambling, and I was kind of sad, so just I don't think I was thinking straight. So all those documents help you think straight, right? Me and my mom's already talked. Shout out to my mom. She was actually paying on her funeral arrangements, right? So she had most of it paid. So I went and paid it off with the credit card. So she had her coffin picked out, the flowers picked out, the place where she paid for it. It's a big cemetery. They had a sanctuary in there that sat 300. So we just had it there. So I mean that. So I'm thinking about doing that for my son, because my son ain't as he's a little crazy. But so all of that together, right? When like she said, your loved ones laid all of that stuff out. My mom had all that stuff out. Real quick story is my mom, she picked the most basic stuff. So I'm in there with my son, and I was like, I'm gonna upgrade the casket, I'm gonna upgrade the flowers. Me and my son looked at it, we bust our laugh, and we go, man, yo, but mom, I want you upgrading that stuff, man. You better save your money. She bought what she wanted, and I paid for it, and we call it good. So the future judge is back, so I'm gonna turn the mic over to her. I didn't know if let me see. Adrian, I don't know if you want to respond to that or wait till after you go through the slides. Ms. Nash had a question.
No, I mean, I think we should take it. I'm sorry about that, you guys. I'm running for judge, right? And I have an election law attorney. Long story short, we're collecting signatures here, and these people, they'll kick you off the ballot. They'll challenge you by kicking you off with challenging your signatures. And he had gotten something wrong with regard to our petition and signatures. So he drove all the way down here to have a conversation with me about it. So I didn't chew him out, but I definitely got him on the same page. So I apologize. So back to work. Adrian Nash says, Your Honor, I'd like to discuss a will contest, trust contest. So are we taking her off mute or something, or how do we do that? She wants to.
I think she wants to answer. I think she just wants to answer now. She could come up. You want to come up, Adrian? Let's see if she wants to come up and talk about it, or just you answer the question on the fly, or she comes up after the slides. What you want to do, Adrian? Let me know. Put it in the chat.
Yeah, okay. So I'll keep talking briefly, and then we'll see when she puts in the chat. She'll let me know the chat. I was going to say one of the most important things about the whole thing around the will, even if you have a will, you have to put the will in probate. You have to go through the probate process with the will. And so for me, that's challenging, right? Because the probate, when you go through probate, first of all, it takes, I know in Cook County right now, to get in a probate court, it can take at least 2 to 3 months just to get into the hearing where the judge just says, oh, okay, yeah, everything is in order for you to probate the estate. Okay, personal rep, we're gonna, even though, the personal representative was already identified in the will, you still have to go to a judge. You have to go before a judge who will then say, okay, this person that you've identified, now deceased, can serve as your executor for your estate, and then go to town. But it can sometimes take 2 to 3 months just for you to get to that point. All the while, your loved one has passed away. You may have a house that you need to sell or something. You can't do it. Taxes may become due. You may need that money for the taxes, but you cannot do it until you get through probate. In the situation where my one question I had with the brother who had the healthcare POA but no financial POA and had money in the bank, right? Had money in the bank to pay for his funeral expenses even. What I told the gentleman was, because he didn't have a financial POA, he had to wait, right? And he had nothing else. He didn't have the financial POA to get the money out the bank. They would have to wait till his brother passed away to get access to this money, and may have to go through a probate process in that situation. Maybe not, depending on how much the assets were valued, because there's some other rules that can apply, at least in Illinois, which are different than Indiana, depending on how much the estate is valued. And I think I may talk about, it's called a small estate affidavit that you can file. But nevertheless, in the case of a will, if you have a will, it needs to go through probate, which can take some time. And as Adrian suggested, even when you get into probate, you can get into a contested situation. Yes.
I brought her up on. If you see her, she's on the left.
Hey, Adrian.
How are you doing?
Hello,
Adrian?
Your Honor.
Hi. It's so good to see you. I'm doing great.
Okay.
I'm super excited.
I am out and about. Like, I am literally at my storage. Those are my boxes behind us. Like, I'm holding my slippery phone in my hand, trying not to drop it. But I don't know how to use. Wait a minute.
You're in California?
No, I actually had to come back to Georgia to get my things.
Okay. You're in Georgia. Okay.
So it snowed yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a California girl. Look, I'm rocking my my alumni gear. I don't know what this is doing.
We can see you. We can see all of that. We can see your gear. We can see your smile.
Look. It's cold out here. It snowed,
Adrian, in Georgia
yesterday.
Yeah, it did drop. B2B was complaining it's cold in Georgia for them. So
man, I'm in Chicago by the lake.
I might need to commission some snuggling because it's cold.
You gotta talk to Professor Blackout about that.
Here.
Come on, Adrian. I need you to get focused. What is your question, young lady? What is your question? What is your question? I'm gonna have to get the panel back on. What can we do for you, Miss Nash?
Yeah, so I don't know where the camera is. Will trust contest. Let's talk about it because I had a relative who was running amok.
Mm-hmm.
And they were gonna do some estate planning documents, and I was like, I can't participate in this because your capacity is questionable to me. Mm-hmm. And I can't be losing my credentials getting caught up in no foolishness. So I'm gonna just step all the way back and let you do what you do. But more than likely there's gonna need to be like a will contest or trust contest in the future. And so I just kind of wanted to talk about that and hear about that. I mean, I know about it in theory. I've never personally drafted anything like that.
Drafted anything like what? A contested will?
Right. I've never done any probate litigation in my, so I'm a trust and estates paralegal, but I've never worked on any probate litigation. But yes, please, let's talk about it.
So, I mean, that's why I made the mention that a will has to be probated. So, of course, when you get into a probate situation where you have to go to court, right? Where you have to go to court, it opens up the estate to be contested, right? So, for a variety of different reasons, that's why I prefer to talk about estate planning, especially around a trust, right? Because trust doesn't have to go through probate.
Of course.
So they tend to, and a trust will then be able to allow you to protect, your assets from potential creditors and that kind of thing, depending on your situation. So I favor trust over wills for those very reasons.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but if you have a will and you have to go through probate, or if you don't have a will and you need to go through probate, there still can be, a contested situation. I've seen it where you may have, like a man who, whose wife passes away and then he gets remarried, but he has adult children by the previous marriage. All kind of crazy situations right there because then he has a will, right? And then he has to or he may not have anything and has a house and he may have investment accounts. So then that has to go through probate. You may have someone like one of my clients who had seven siblings. And so, generally speaking, my experience has been that people need something in place. and something besides a will, which is most likely going to be some sort of trust. Because what happens when people die, and I'll be honest with you, even in my situation, when my mom passed away, people just, it's a very high emotional time, right? It's a lot of emotions involved. You know, for me, I know personally what I experienced was, because my mom died, she had a heart attack and died. Wasn't able to see her before, you know, they pronounced her dead or whatever. I just felt like I lost control. Maybe that's what it is. So I just started grabbing for control. I was, you know, very emotional, angry, even just controlling, planning the funeral and all of that. So it's a very difficult time. It's a high emotion. I always say I'm dealing with people in crisis during, you know, when someone passes away. And so people, siblings, other loved ones, especially if you don't have any estate planning documents in place and you got to go through probate, it's crazy ugly. And that's where a lot of attorneys make their money, right? It's because people are fighting. That happens all day, every day. I hear those stories where just fighting for stupid reasons, fighting because they don't even know. I have a client right now who, he has one sister. His mom did not have a will. They have, it's one condo. The condo is $160,000, probably $160,000 condo. That's really the estate. But we had to go through probate. We had in Illinois, in Cook County, the sister hired an attorney for $3,500. I'm just gonna tell y'all numbers. For $3,500, hired an attorney plus the cost of the fees to probate. And then the brother came to me and said, well, I don't trust her. I don't trust what she's doing. They have, you know, a history of, you know, fighting. Mother didn't have a will. So he came to me and hired me. And so they're coming out of pocket thousands of dollars, right? And we got $160,000, and that's the only thing there. It took us 2 months just to get before a probate judge, right? And then now we got to wait 6 more months. And then they're still fighting. I'm like, please do not call me anymore, Mr. Client. What are you calling me for? Well, we want to be able to get in the house. And okay, so we had to work that out. They fighting over stupid stuff, right? They're fighting over stupid. And that happens in the case with the lady who had 7 siblings. You know, it's hard to manage 7 people and everybody who feels like they have a right to her estate. And she had about $300,000 in investment accounts. And she had a trust from a previous attorney that she did 10 years ago, but it was never funded, which is another thing I'm gonna talk about later on when I talk about trust. So it wasn't funded. And right before, she had a power of attorney right before she died, I persuaded the power of attorney, who really didn't understand a lot of it. He just knew that he was her POA because she identified him as the POA. But he didn't really know what that meant. But I persuaded him to transfer the property into the trust right before she passed away. So we didn't have to, the trust wouldn't have to be, or the property didn't have to be probated, but her $300,000 did. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about trust. I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself, and I'm talking to you because you understand it. Right. So I don't know. I mean, I didn't know if you wanted to bring up some more examples or of, well, you said you didn't do any litigation, but I mean, all I will say is anytime you get in a probate situation, it can be contested. You know, the wife, you know, it depends on the laws of your state, Right. The wife can contest it. You know, there's a certain timeline that they have to do it. You know, siblings can fight, and you have to bring in other attorneys. I don't believe, I know I wouldn't like to do this, but I don't believe that probate judges really like to be in the mix, right? And trying to determine, you know, what someone who's already dead, the testators or the deceased, what their wishes would have been with regard to their family members. I don't want to be put in that situation. And I just think, so as much as possible, I try to keep I try to keep estates out of probate. But usually it can't be helped, especially if you don't have anything in place, any estate planning documents, and you have like real property that you're having to dispose of or deal with. There is a case where, for example, like if you have what's called a small estate, and of course a small estate is defined by depending on which jurisdiction you live in. Like so if you live in Illinois, any estate under $100,000 is considered a small estate. If you live in Indiana, for example, if your estate is valued at under $50,000 and under, that's considered a small estate. And I mention that because if you have a small estate, depending on what jurisdiction you live in, then you may be able to file what's called a small estate affidavit. In the case of like a bank account, you will file that with a small estate affidavit, and it's basically, you identify that you're the heir to the property, and all the other heirs, all of them have to sign off on it, and you have to identify what estate is what assets are in the estate and what the value. You have to prove that what's there, that you're the heir and the other heirs, and the value of the estate. You have to prove that it's small estate. So then you won't have to go through probate. I say all that, so you won't have to go through probate. So like if there's a bank account there that's worth $10,000, in the case of the one gentleman I was talking about, he wouldn't have to go through probate. If the bank account was $110,000, he's got to go through probate. I hope that makes sense. So there are some ways that you can get around probate, but it depends on your situation and the proper planning, estate plan that you have to do. So I'm going to have Adrian kind of stay on the line, to maybe we can discuss more in more depth her, the issue she raised about contesting a will, and maybe somebody else has some horror stories about, contested wills or contested estates.
Hold on, Amber.
Hold
on before you start. She came up. What question you got, She? Can you hear me, She?
Yeah, I can hear you.
What you got for us?
Well, basically, I really ain't have no question. I just wanted to just come up and talk about like the situation I went through as far as with probate and dealing with different things.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
We'll let you slide that in, and then we'll continue. What you got for us, She?
Yeah, because basically, I dealt with my uncle when he passed. I was over his life insurance. So basically when the issue happened with his material things like his car, a bank account, all that stuff went into probate, it was literally so hard to kind of work through and to get all the process of everything, because he was never married. He had just nothing but nieces and nephews. And so the likeliness of everybody coming in to say that they didn't want any part of anything, because nobody never really knew what he had to the extent. I mean, as far as the money in his bank account, he had like a couple of thousand in there, had one vehicle. He was staying in a senior living home, but we were able to get all his possessions there. But other than that, all his finances, nobody really knew unless he really told him. And, with me being over his, excuse me, with his life insurance, that was the only thing that, pretty much I had control over. And that's what gets me stirred up, because, my mom and dad passed at a young age, but being raised by my grandma, my granny, and all the older people, they would always talk about life insurance being such a big thing. So that's why I'm such a big advocate in this space about that. Like I was saying, go ahead.
So you're an advocate. You're talking about life insurance specifically, and you mentioned that you were over his life insurance. Does that mean you were a beneficiary of his life insurance?
Yes.
Okay, I was just curious. And so so you were basically a beneficiary. Were you the only one? So when you're a beneficiary of a life insurance, you could just take the money and it's yours, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's one way to kind of pass, your assets down. I suppose is like you said through life insurance, and then now you mentioned too, and I think I'm gonna talk about it, or I should have already talked about it, but just like you said, nobody knew what was going on with any of his assets because he didn't really talk about it. And I think that's a big issue with, particularly for men, particularly for Black men, is that they don't want to have this conversation. I don't know if they think we're gonna kill them off or what. I don't know if they fear death or what, but I do think it's important to at least have a trusted somebody, right, who understands, what you have and what accounts you have and what life insurance policies are out there and who the beneficiaries are, and you know what I mean, somebody who's trusted, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, and that was the main reason why he was telling me being his beneficiary, because he was having difficulty with, I guess, his oldest niece, and then for all the older cousins, they just up and down. They were productive, do the right thing, but it just that it got to a point where he was irritated with, I guess, the way they were moving and acting. So he just wanted nothing to do with them. And since I was the more responsible younger nephew, he put it in my hands to be responsible for his burial and any and everything that was left over far as from that
Mm-hmm.
policy and everything.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And I didn't mention life insurance specifically. I know Adrian had mentioned it the other day about, but again, having these conversations with I had a couple life insurance people were telling me that it's hard for them for Black men in particular to talk to them about. It's hard for them to get access to them to talk about this topic, right? This is estate planning. So life insurance is certainly another potential estate planning tool. I don't do life insurance. It sounds like you may do it.
Well, I actually deal with a guy in this space, Alonzo Hall. Me and him talk a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually sells insurance. I bought insurance through him for my two younger boys. I got
Mm-hmm.
universal life insurance for them, but I also have all three of the policies for myself. I got universal term and whole life, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually planning on getting at least one or two more policies just to be on the safe side. I was the one that put it in the chat the other day about having so many life insurance. My wife got two policies. My younger boys got a policy apiece on themselves. So that's one way I'm gonna pass generational wealth and possibly give them some type of leverage to where they can, when they get older, if they want to buy a house, they can go into their life insurance policy
Mm-hmm.
and take that out to purchase property or things of that nature.
Yeah, that's a good idea to have another discussion about life insurance in particular. I don't do it. So we definitely want to bring somebody on board, bring somebody up who really can really speak to what you're discussing. I think that's a good idea. I know John talks about his life insurance policies all the time. I do want to encourage you though to also talk with someone about getting your healthcare power of attorney and your financial power of attorney in place. At least
And
that, if you already
yeah,
haven't done that.
and that's one of the things that the guy Alonzo, he's working with me to set on my trust. So basically, he was saying, sorry about it. Yeah, I got a
You
call.
kind of
Sorry
went
about that.
out. You're going out.
Yeah, I had a call. I had to ignore it. But basically, what he was telling me, the first step into me dealing with him, not only just getting a policy, this is just the first step. Then we're going to talk about the trust. Then we're going to be
Mm-hmm.
talking about far as like the wills and things. And like basically, far as he had gave me a checklist to where anything that I have of possession to try to let people know where are the companies. Like right now, I have a folder with all my documents in it. I have mainly all my policies in there for every one of my kids, my wife, me, to where if anything happens, she goes in there, she knows what needs to be done as far as the policies, who to call. I have associates that I deal with for business wise, different accounts that I have set up with these people. So I get monthly withdrawals taken out for business ventures I do with different partners. So if anything happens, that money's just not going to be in their pocket. It's going to actually come back to her. She can either, the company can actually break down the process of the money which they need to pass along to her, or she can steady pay into it and stay into that business. you know,
Right.
things of that nature. It's like he gave me a good little list of everything, far as even with like my cars, any little possession down to any material things that I want to give to family members. Start making a list to when we do the trust and everything. Like he's basically showing me this is the process to keep going. So he's constantly like we constantly talk online, but I have his personal number, so we constantly talk on and off about these things.
So is Ed an attorney?
Excuse me?
Is he an attorney? Or is your
No,
friend
he's
an attorney?
a life insurance and financial advisor.
So
I think he has this license in several different states, but he's mainly he has in Connecticut, I believe, but he did work out of New York. And I dealt with him online. I was talking to him online for us, and we connected for him talking about life insurance because I know certain things in and out, and I'm pretty much just know a little bit because, like I said, I'm really into it about trying to get people, you know, to think about their future. Because, like I said, with
Where
my
are you
mother,
located?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, so you're in Atlanta. Okay.
Yeah. So when my
Okay, that's
mother and
cool.
father passed, go ahead.
I said that's cool.
Yeah. And so with my mother and father passing at a young age, that's why I took, you know, real, you know, into this life insurance because, you know, nobody never knows. You know, and I always tell people we live on two incomes, a wife and a husband. So if one of us pass, that's a shock to the system if you're not passing on any type of wealth, like you're not planning on your funeral or anything. And you know, he talks about the difference between life insurance and death insurance. Most people they getting life insurance thinking that this is a death sentence. You know, they're not knowing that you could take life insurance and borrow money from it to pay on things, you know, to just do anything. To a point, you build so much into that life insurance, it's like you're being the bank for yourself.
Yes, I agree. I do. Again, I wanted to just kind of just encourage you and the listeners to make sure that to put those legal documents in place. You guys want to make sure you just get up. I know you know this. Get up with the. It's just a reminder to make sure you connect with an attorney in your respective um, state and jurisdiction. So, I want you to get. So he's doing a good thing in that you're pulling everything together. Especially for a trust, you're gonna have to do it anyway. So when you get to the attorney, you're gonna already have everything you need to have in order for him to do what he needs to do. Because it's really important to fund a trust, right? But then I'm gonna talk a little bit about a trust in just a minute, just to give you just to give the listeners an idea about what a trust is and what all goes into it and kind of what it means. So I am appreciative of what you're saying about life insurance. I think, John, it's a good idea to bring up, maybe have that discussion too, maybe a different time. It sounds like there's a lot of discussion around it and I'm not fully apprised to.
Yeah, I might need to get She's guy. His
Yeah, I'll reach out to Alonzo and
Yeah.
I'll tell him to get in contact with you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah. Go ahead and go over those rest of those slides, Hammer. For we're gonna be here
All
all
right.
night.
I'm gonna drop
Thanks,
down.
Sheed, for coming up though, man. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
All
you.
right. No
Sheed
problem.
always show me support, man. Shout out to Sheed. He look at all my videos, man. Sheed be leaving me comments, man. I appreciate that, man.
No
So
problem.
just quickly, there are a few more. Thank you, Sheed. I appreciate that too. I'm glad you're on top of it for you and your family and for the kids, because this is really all about, building wealth, but protecting it and passing it down, right? We're building generational wealth. So I want to talk a little bit about trust. Let me see, I added this slide. Hold on. So trust, we talk about trust, that term has been thrown around. I say trust versus a will, and trust in estate plan, right? So with the trust, a trust is a document. It's the document really that identifies the roles and responsibilities of the trust. It's a legal document that allows individuals or couples to pass their assets after death. Same kind of idea as a will. It allows individual or couple to protect their assets from creditors. I mentioned that earlier when Adrian and I were talking. No probate is necessary. It can be revocable, which means it can be amended or changed, or irrevocable, which means it can't. So the idea here is that you have a document that you identify what's called a successor trustee. It's a fiduciary. It's somebody who has an obligation, a responsibility to manage your assets after you pass away. Right. So you designate this successor trustee. That's the term that we call it. As opposed to in a will, when you probate a will, you have a personal representative or executor. In a trust, they're called a trustee, a successor trustee. The other thing about the trust is, you want to what we call fund the trust with the trust assets. So what that means is you set up a trust, you have the trust document, you identify the successor trustee, you identify the assets in the trust on this schedule, what's called a schedule. So you have a house, right? You have the house. A house, when you have a house that's titled in your name, for example, I don't know, do they know my name is Meredith Hammer. So my house is, and on title, I'm Meredith V. Hammer, right? That's the title. But when I fund my trust, I set up my trust and I fund it, we transfer the title of the house to the Revocable Living Trust of Meredith Hammer, or the Revocable Living Trust of Hammer. We just say that. So that's how you fund the trust. You put the title of real property and other property, like investment accounts, into the name of the trust. And then when you pass away, because the title of the property is in the name of the trust, your successor trustee has the power and the authority to manage the property, because the trust document has given the successor trustee those powers. So, for example, the house, my house that's titled in the name of the trust, the Revocable Living Trust of Hammer, my successor trustee, who could be Professor Black Ops, when I pass away, he would want to sell that house, for example, and give the proceeds to my niece. That's what I told him to do in my trust. So he would have the power to do that. And all he would have to do is show the trust document, which I'm going to give him a copy of, right, when we setting all this stuff up, as well as my niece. She don't have to understand what that is, too. He's going to give that trust document to the title company, who's going to pull the deed, see that the trust is on title, and then know that he has the power to transfer it. But we got to fund the trust. If we set up the trust document and we identify Professor Black Ops as my successor trustee, and we still leave the property in my name and not the trust, we didn't fund it. And he doesn't have the power to do anything with it. And so what happens is that my property and my name and not the trust name needs to go through probate. It needs to go through probate, which is the exact thing we were trying to avoid. And trust me, if you set it up properly, if you set everything up properly with your trust, and you identify all your assets and you fund the trust and you have a schedule of everything, you keep it up to date. When you pass away, your successor trustee, it takes less than a half a day, a couple hours to figure out what needs to be done. Because with the trust and the estate plan, you also identify and determine what funeral arrangements you want to make, if any. Some of the things here, a couple more slides. What are the things I want my successor trustee to know? As you can imagine, again, it's what's important to me in my life. You want to consider the following areas of your life: your finances, taxes, and their implications. What's going to happen if I transfer my assets into this type of trust? You've got different types of trust out there too, like charitable living trust and charitable remainder trust. You've got some different trusts. Typically, these kinds of other trusts come up when you have very wealthy clients, which I have never had any of those. But you definitely want to consider tax implications. You want to consider the legal implications. In some cases, people set up trusts when they have small children, or they may have a disabled child, and so you would have to identify like a guardian or individuals who are going to serve as guardians for your children in the case if something happens to you. And again, medical, you want to consider your medical needs. And so that would obviously involve the healthcare power of attorney. So some of the things, you want to talk about these things. Again, like Sheed was saying, his uncle really didn't inform anyone of the other family members about any of his assets. And I'm telling you, you need to talk about it. You need to have a trusted individual that you're discussing these things with and helping to identify your assets. So for in the case of your trust schedule, which is what it's called, when you're setting with trust, you have a list of assets, which may include real property, investment accounts, bank accounts, cars, jewelry, other personal items, fur coats, all this jewelry that I know we can have. You want to keep it up to date so the trustee knows what's out there. So you want to keep your trust schedule up to date. And again, this is something, your estate planning documents is something you want to keep up to date as a whole, and maybe look at maybe once a year. Will avoid probate. Okay, so yeah, keeping the trust schedule up to date will help to avoid probate for any items that may not have been put for any items that have been put in the trust or funded. The trust was funded with those items, and of course, as I said earlier, if you leave them out, then they have to go through probate. I think this last thing I wanted to discuss is what's called a pour over will. I say it's an in-case scenario. The pour over will is it's like a will, like a last will and testament. But so it identifies the person, representative, and executor. But it's a part of the estate planning documents because it's in case you, for example, you have everything you need, your trust, you have your trust schedule, which you kept up to date, but you win the lottery a day before you die, right? So the pour over will says, okay, put any of those assets that aren't in my trust already, or in case something happens to me right before I die and I didn't have a chance to put them over there in my trust, put them in there. That's what the pour over will says. But it says it'll have to go through probate to get the court to transfer it to the trust, right? So you do have to do, in case, right, that happens, which the likelihood of you winning the lottery right before you die is slim to none, but we do have this what's called a pour over will to serve as a catch-all in case that happens. So the estate plan, right, the key components of an estate plan, a good estate plan, I guess I should qualify that and say a good estate plan is you have your trust documents. Your trust document, you want to fund the trust. And that means you want to, for example, in the case of real property, you want to you have quit claim deeds to transfer property into the name of the trust and out of your name, as well as investment accounts. You want a healthcare power of attorney, you want a financial power of attorney, you want the pour over will, and then you want a trust schedule. I need to add the trust schedule to that. I also wanted to briefly mention a transfer on death instrument. This comes up in Illinois. I believe it's available in other states, a TOD, transfer on death instrument, but I've had questions about it. I mean, again, it depends on your situation. A transfer on death deed instrument is a deed that transfers real property upon the death of an individual. It's a deed that you file with the recorder's office, and it states that the property is going to be transferred over, for example, to like my niece when I die. And then what happens is when I die, my niece will file a survivorship affidavit in order to be on title for that property, and no probate is necessary. So that's, in a specific situation. Everybody's situation is different.
Can you put those on bank accounts?
Payable in death, bank accounts, I believe you can.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, so when you die, but if you got the financial documents, you can get it. But two is,
It just depends on your situation. Like, I mean, in the case of you and your mom, yeah, I could see a payable on death
Yeah, but
account.
I had the financial documents, so I can get it anyway.
Yeah, so you did, yeah. So it just depends. I mean, again, you know, the thing about it is, if you only have one, it just depends. You know, when you have like a estate plan and you have everything listed and you want to keep it up to date. I mean, these are just so, you know, like straightforward. It doesn't really allow you to think about to do estate planning. But certainly if you just got one account and you got one kid and you know that's where it's going, then you want to set it up like that, you know, because it's easy. You don't have to go through probate. You don't have to do it in the cost of trust. But for example, I had a lady that I know. She's actually the assistant chief deputy clerk in the clerk's office for probate. And her aunt, they have a situation now because she is the POA, financial POA for her aunt. So her aunt has dementia. What she did was the family had decided that what everybody knew was that her aunt wanted her to be the POA, which she was, and wanted the property to be transferred. She only had one property to go in Talitha's sister and brother's name and her name. Well, what she did was she transferred the property into her brother's and sister's name with a transfer on death instrument. Well, I said, well, Talitha, what happens if your brother, who then got married,
you saying real names, break those up.
I'm sorry. What happens if your brother got married or he passed away and who he got married? And so that's, you know, and you got this transfer on death document that for her father who says, okay, transfer this property. I'm sure her aunt, transfer this property when she dies to my brother and my sister, and they're on title only. I mean, it just, what happens when one of them passes away? They have families, they have heirs. To me, it's just not the best we can do as far as an estate plan document.
It gets messy.
It just starts to get complicated and messy. And so she's like, okay, what do we do now? And I'm like, okay, we got to talk about it. Right. But see, the problem now is her aunt has dementia.
Fine.
And so we got my friend, she's making all the decisions. She only has financial decisions that she can make until her aunt passes. And she can make, I just feel like it's limited. I have limited information. I want to make, so then I'm faced with, okay, Attorney Hammer, you got to help me make decisions that my aunt would have made for her estate and her plan. And it really puts me in a stressful situation, right? It puts me in a stressful situation. And then what happens if she dies tomorrow?
No, that's true. That's why you got to plan.
That's why we have to do planning, and we have to think about all the hypotheticals. And I know somebody mentioned, what about the cost? And they don't, I get a lot of times, well, why I got to pay all this money? I mean, I just feel like, again, we're talking about planning. We're talking about doing proper planning. We're talking about protecting our assets and building generational wealth. I personally don't, I know someone put in here that they had to, did you put in that you move it, but they had to pay $2,500 or something.
Yeah. We can, at the end, we'll go back to those questions and hit them
okay.
again.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just like with anything else. If you do the proper planning and hire the proper people, and up front, what is it? What's the term? You measure twice and cut once, right? If you wait to versus waiting till someone dies and then having to get in a contested probate situation, you could spend thousands and thousands of dollars. You don't know how much you're gonna spend.
No, facts.
You just don't know how much you're gonna spend. So I put up some case studies here, different cases that I've had. Like in the case of the one Stanley family case study, not their real name. I made up that name. And I think I mentioned to Adrian earlier, she had my client, well, she was deceased now, but she had a trust and estate plan. Her attorney before years ago, she had set up did not fund the trust. She had real property. I knew she had real property, but we didn't know what else she had out there. We got the real property transferred with her POA to the trust before she passed away. She passed away. As it turned out, she had over $300,000 in investment accounts in her name, had to go through probate. But guess what else she had? $500,000 worth of medical bills.
Ooh.
So because of that, when we went through probate,
Hospital
the hospital attached the claim to it. Attached the claim, they claimed it, and so we settled. And the family was furious. They didn't know what to do. It took us a year, a year to get through the process. The power of attorney had no idea. Well, he thought he could just work it out because he was the POA. Well, after she passed away, his POA, his power of attorney expired. And it was just a mess. I mean, we didn't have to put the property into probate, thank God, because I mean, she had $1 million worth of property. And so see what happens is if she had to sell the property to pay off the hospital debt, she done lost her wealth that she done built, right? So what we ended up doing, just so you know, is we settled. I'm a master negotiator. I settled with the hospital for like $98,000. I was just trying to not have her lose as much as she could have lost, right? So we settled with $98,000. And her family was like, well, we already paid them, the insurance already paid them $1 million because she was in the hospital so long. It didn't matter, you know? If we could have avoided all of that. And then they had to pay me my money too. I think they had to pay me over a year worth of working with them, like $9,000, which, you know, I deserved that and more, I think. Just being for real with you guys in the numbers. Because I negotiated it down where they only had to pay $98. So they were able to put $200,000 back into their, you know, the family, right? She had 7 brothers and sisters, and 7 of them, nobody knew what to do. Nobody figured it out before she passed that she had not funded the trust. Had an attorney who set up a stellar estate trust, will, she had everything, never funded it, never wanted to put anything into the trust, which is crazy to me, and charged her a couple $1,000s to do that. A couple $1,000s to do that. And so, I mean, that was that one case study. The other one was the Hadley. I think I already mentioned the Hadley family case study where there wasn't a will, there were 2 children, and there was a dispute between the kids, the adult kids. We're still in probate. We got 1 property. It's a condo worth $160,000. They're probably going to spend, I don't know, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 between attorney's fees and filing fees, maybe more. You know, she probably, their mom probably could have done a number of things with only having 1 property for not to have that much wealth, which it doesn't sound like a lot. But, you know, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 when you got 1 property, when you may have not had to spend any, or maybe just a couple thousand to get the trust set up. I mean, I don't know. You know, you start losing wealth. You start chipping away. So let me go to the next slide. I think so. I wanted to put up some conversation starters because I know that a lot of times this is a hard conversation to have with people and family members, especially in the case of, you know, healthcare and, you know, if someone is perfectly fine and their quality of life is great, you know, why would they want to start having a conversation about this? But I think we've talked about that already. We're living in an age of a pandemic. And, you know, people are getting sick. I'm a woman of a certain age, right? And so John is a man of a certain age who we need to get, you know, he has, you know, a family, you know, children, you know, adult children, grandchildren. You want to make sure that they're taken care of. You know, she was saying, you know, he has children, he's got a wife. We want to make sure that they're going to be taken care of and if something happens to them. So I just put these up here, you know, just to kind of bring, you know, sort of start to have the conversation. There's been something on my mind. Let's talk about it. Now's a good time to bring it up. You're very important to me. You matter to me and I care about you. You can count on me to be there for you. I want to do the right thing for you when you need when you need me the most. And I do not know what your wishes are, so please tell me them so I can honor them whether I agree with them or not. So just some ideas I had about, starting a conversation. And then I wanted to put my email address up there in case somebody wanted to shoot me an email. I can't guarantee that I can answer the question for you, depending on what jurisdiction you're in, but I may be able to refer you or get you on the right track. So that's all I had, John. You may want to go through some of these questions. I know.
Nash had a question. She's on the panel. What's your question, Adrian? She's on the panel. She said she had a question in the back chat.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Crystal clear.
So where I'm from, if an attorney would write a trust document and not fund it, that's malpractice.
Malpractice?
Yeah. Is that what happened in the example you gave?
Well, I mean, malpractice is something where you're saying it's malpractice, but it just doesn't. Who says it's malpractice? Who determines it's malpractice? You would have to, the state goes after the attorney, right, for malpractice. You can always sue. No guarantees you're going to get, even if you're awarded judgment, no time. No, that's not what happened. What happened was the lady was sick. She was in the hospital for over a year, maybe 2 years. And it kind of came up. I actually was working on their dad's estate. It was my former teacher. I was at the bank maybe 4 years ago, and I saw my teacher from high school, 30 years ago. So, oh my gosh, Meredith, I told her what I did. She said, do you do probates? I said, yeah, my dad just passed away. Can you help? I said, sure. Her sister, who was kind of sickly, and her brother were the executors for her dad's estate. So they hired me. I was working with them. Next thing I knew, we closed with that. That went through probate. We closed the estate. I actually took over from the former attorney on that estate. Well, then her sister got sick. Right at the end of that process, her sister got sick and went into the hospital. I mean, literally for about 2 years. And then they called me when she was in her last days. They called me. They knew she had a trust and just assumed everything was set up correctly because it was with the family attorney, some guy who, I don't think he really knew what he was doing. And so I'm saying all that to say there was a lot going on. We had a death of a father, the patriarch of the family. The father had been remarried, so they were dealing with like a stepmom who was in her 80s, and the father had given the stepmom a life estate into his biggest asset, which was the home. So I was trying to work it out where we were negotiating with her to let her stay in the home and pay rent. It was a lot going on, right? Then we have a sister who then starts to get sick while we're trying to probate the dad's estate. And at the end, when she was sick and she passes, we're trying to figure out we're scrambling. Then COVID hits. Then we're in a situation where the courts are shut down. So we were really trying to get access to her estate and everything. And I scrambled. And right before she died, we actually got the property transferred over. So it was kind of like cut your losses at that point. Now certainly they can go back and try to sue him, whatnot. But that puts that's a lot of pressure and stress and money and time and energy that you got to put out to do that. So technically, no, it didn't happen. I'm not saying it won't happen. I filed the closing documents for the estate. It'll be 3 months at the end of this month. So we literally just closed it 2.5 months ago, after a couple of years in probate. So no, that they didn't sue him. they may sue him. I won't do it. I'm not going to be handling it. I'm going to be on the bench. So so no, that didn't happen. But yeah, it is I would consider it a malpractice case for sure.
Quick question, Hammer.
Do you give a copy of trust to your niece? I would, yes. Why not? I think you.
He's referring to when you put me in charge talking about your niece.
Yeah, I mean, I like to have the conversations with people, with the it depends. I mean, you know, if the person, I don't know, I have a cousin who is a little crazy. You know, his mom didn't necessarily let him know what was going on. He was the beneficiary of the trust that she set up and put her brother in charge of it instead of her grown son, and her son didn't know. So I think for a lot of reasons, he didn't know. And so it depends. And again, for me, in that situation, I will let my niece know.
Facts. See the southern one by why not?
If you leave a particular asset out of probate by mistake, does everything go through probate or only that asset? Nope, only that asset.
Another one.
Does another trust need to be done if one retires to a different state? Say I get my trust done in Maryland but retire in Louisiana. You know, it depends on the situation. It depends on what, you know, what's in the trust, where it's located. I definitely would talk to an attorney, you know, in the new state you're moving into, just to make sure everything is in order and as it should be. You know, you don't want to, no surprise. Why wouldn't you just, you know, go ahead and talk to someone in a new jurisdiction if you've moved and you retired, just to make sure everything is in order. That's really just, again, it's just about proper estate planning and keep everything up to date. It is because my answer, there's no straightforward answer. It just depends. You know, it depends on your situation and where your property is located, and you know what all the assets in your estate. It just kind of depends on even what state you moved to. Oh, this is a blind guy, his wife, and their life.
Yeah, he's moderating for me. You good?
Okay.
Put any more questions in the chat if y'all have any more.
Yeah, I see Adrian had put something in here. Transfer and death deeds are available for use in California. If you used a piece of real estate, can avoid probate. So that was, yes, right. I believe also, Adrian, I believe also transfer and death interest can be used for bank account. Yeah, payable on death. Yeah, accounts. I would like to have some further shot type conversation. Okay. That's fine, Adrian. Okay, I think those are all the questions.
That's it. We'll do another one.
Wait a minute. Somebody did say something about, okay, first of all, Adrian says she's planning on sitting for the Certified Financial Planners exam. Cool. When is that going to, this summer, right? So good luck with that. That's a big opportunity. So I'm sure we'll talk again before the. Someone said, why not just log? Oh, why did you mention anything about cost? I had a consultation, minimum was $2,100, their max was about $11,000. You know, again, costs are relative. It depends on your situation. It depends on your assets. I have a client who has multiple businesses, multiple properties. He wanted to set up a trust. He don't even have no kids. He got a nephew. He got, you know, he wants to do a lot. He wants it to be complicated. I can't, it's gonna take me time. You know, I want to make sure I get it right. I can't just charge that brother $1,000 or $1,500. I mean, I want to make sure I get it right. I want to make sure I fund the trust right, Adrian, and everything gets in there. If not, then I mean, he's gonna have to pay the money down the road. You know, he's gonna pay attorneys to go through probate or whatnot, or may not get all his money. You know, it be a situation like my one client where she had to pay all those medical expenses. So, you know, my costs, I think, are really straightforward. It depends on what you have. I'm probably right about there, minimum of $2,500. I've never charged anybody $11,000 to do anything related to a trust. Will say this, it's like anything else. You can pay, you don't have to come out of pocket with $2,500 like tomorrow. You can pay like monthly, you know what I mean? Like an installment plan. just, you know, just like anything else, this is an investment into protecting and building generational wealth, you know, for your kids and your future. I don't see why you wouldn't make an investment to pay on it every month or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm right at about $2,500 for minimum. I don't charge anything for a 30-minute consultation fee, right? So most attorneys will give you 30 minutes, but we can't do 30 minutes and 30 minutes, 30 minutes, right? And keep doing it, and then so you know, so you gotta pay, you gotta invest in your estate plan. So Adrian says, I'm going to say, oh, she says,
that's in our private chat. Can't nobody see
okay,
that.
I'm sorry.
You see ties on the screen?
I'm still here listening and support.
No.
What about vehicles being transferred upon death? I mean, yeah, you want to, transferring upon, I don't know. You like a transfer of death type of thing for a vehicle?
I've never seen that. What would be the best way? I guess just put it in your will or your trust, who you want the vehicles to go to.
That's the way I've done it before. Is that you like you said, you transfer, you list it as a personal property in your trust, on your schedule, or on your will. You can, no, they are the biggest thing, the biggest consideration for sure. But you can put it in a will, or he says mark it on the title. I've never done that. Maybe in your respective state, you could do it. I don't know that that's the case.
I would just put in the trust title.
But I'm in Illinois, in Cook County. I live in Illinois. I live in Chicago. And I mean, I can check it out for Illinois, just to be clear, but it's not something that I don't think you can do it on your title.
We'll look into that title. We'll look into that title. You already stated what state you're in. You're in Illinois. So let's see. Oh,
you live in Missouri. Okay.
Oh, he's in Missouri. I guess shout out to Ty, Missouri. There's gonna be a part 2 probably this sometime next week. You'll see it on there. Just check my channel, my upcoming lives. Come on there, and a lot of y'all on my notification squad, so y'all get it. So we probably schedule some next week for a part 2. Let's still supporting channel.
Okay, so that's all I have. Thank you guys so much. I'm losing my voice. I've got to get on another call with a potential client and talk about his trust and estate plan. So I am happy to be here, happy to provide some information for you guys.
Educational only.
Educational only. I hope it sparks conversation between you and your loved ones. And I hope you guys, stay safe, stay well, stay encouraged. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Like I said, we have part 2 next week. You'll see it come through. Thank everybody for joining me. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.